Well, the amount of sunshine that we receive is highly variable. What's the pattern you see? Can you describe a couple of patterns to yourself? What are we seeing here overall, latitudinally, at least? So the poles, not much insulation total. If you just look at the measurement as watts per square meter, a square meter is about as big as a fairly large desk, and watts, the standard old light bulbs that your grandma used were probably 60 watts each, most of them, some of them 100, some of them 40. But anyway, it's like 60, that would be like, if you look at the sunnier places in the world, it'd be like 4 or 5 of those. So in a square, shining down on a square meter, give you, that's an average 24/7 number. So much brighter than that during the day, except when it's really cloudy. But what you see here is not much in the poles. And remember, quick concept again. Okay, this is a little review. Why so much less in the poles? Is it the number of hours of day in a year, or is it something else? And so you probably remember it's something else. It's the intensity of the radiation in those higher latitudes far away from the equator. The intensity of the radiation as it is received by the ground is quite low because it spreads out over a very large area. That's the big reason. Whereas in the tropics, the solar altitude is the sun is very high in the sky and during the day, and so its intensity as received by the ground is very significant. So that's one pattern. Poles, polar areas, higher latitudes, less. Subtropics, not so much tropics, a little bit in the tropics, but definitely subtropics is where the real big numbers are and straddling the tropics. Look at the whole kind of northern Africa, Middle East, and then in the southern hemisphere, northern Australia, right along the tropic line there. South Africa, also straddling the tropic. Those brown areas are really high numbers. But check it out. We have a pretty good dose of solar radiation in our own Southwest, Arizona, a little bit to Southern California, New Mexico, and into Texas. These are big numbers. And in fact, some very old studies have been around a long time now, even back when the solar panels were not so efficient, showed that even just a relatively minor corner of the state of Nevada, if you put it all into utility scale solar farms, would produce more than all the electricity used in the United States by a long shot. And so it's a huge resource, a huge resource. And here's something about the future. The Middle Eastern oil exporting nations are putting solar farms on their own territory to generate electricity to run the air conditioners. It's cheaper to put solar panels up than it is to burn products that are distilled from oil. That's amazing. We, my friends, I believe, are in the solar century. We don't know it yet, but we're there. Solar has gotten such low cost. So that's a map of hope in a lot of ways because Europe can tap into the enormous resources in northern Africa there, very close by, and there's already projects that are headed that direction. The Middle East can be a major exporter of electricity as well as oil. Hopefully, the electricity wins out pretty soon over the long haul, electrifying our cars, and in the U.S. and Northwest Mexico. So some great resources there, and in fact, really much of the Southwest and even the South is a pretty good resource. Less so here in Oregon. By the way, there's also an east-west divide in Oregon. This is a real general map here. I wish it was a little higher res for our area.